The tropics are very, very active. Good Sunday to you. I'm Mike Naso with this late morning, early afternoon Sunday update on the tropics. Please like, subscribe to our tropical video update page here on YouTube. Again, the tropics are busy. We have a few features to talk about. The first on the left side of your screen is Tropical Storm Fred. It had dissipated yesterday, but it came back as expected, and it is forecast to strike the Florida Panhandle. We have Tropical Storm Grace south of Puerto Rico, heading on off towards the west-northwest, and that is forecast to move over a lot of the Caribbean and cause problems, especially down the road. And we have Invest 96L here near Bermuda to the northeast of Bermuda. This should loop around and remain at sea, but still a threat to boating interest out there, and it could become another tropical storm. Let's start with Fred since it's closest to home. As of 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Tropical Storm Fred was at 26.1 north, 84.9 west. Winds of 40. It's moving north-northwest at 12. The pressure's starting to fall there. 1,008 millibars. It had been up over 1010, 1012, so we're finally getting some lowering pressures. You can see tropical storm force winds extend out there, mostly to the northeast of the center, as it is sheared. I'll show you that in a minute. But it is forecast to strengthen into a mid-range tropical storm before landfall sometime Monday evening, probably, in the general vicinity of the Florida Panhandle. And for that reason, we do have a tropical storm warning in effect from the coastline of the Florida Panhandle from Navarre to the Jefferson County line. We also have a tropical storm watch for the coast of the Florida Panhandle from the Alabama-Florida border over to Navarre. And so if you're on this western edge of the track here, you guys are in that watch. We do have a storm surge warning in effect as well from Indian Pass to the Steinhatchee River just because of that water rise. As mentioned on these updates for the last 10-15 years, the Gulf Coast is very susceptible to high onshore storm surges. The computer models are in pretty good agreement. It could be Mobile Bay, it could be Apalachicola, but generally the Florida Panhandle, you guys look like you're going to be ground zero for landfall. Again, it could strengthen, but a hurricane doesn't appear to be in the cards, at least not right now. Here's the visible satellite imagery. You can see a lot of lightning there over the eastern Gulf. Definitely not a day to be out on the water doing any boating or fishing. You can see there's the center, and it is still sheared. It's kind of stuck between a favorable high-pressure anticyclone in this area and then the troughiness off towards the north, and as it rounds that ridge towards the north, it's kind of getting sheared there. Nevertheless, it's over very, very hot waters, and that's allowing it to bubble and strengthen there. But again, most of the cloud cover on the right side of the circulation. The wind shear, again, not too favorable, but over the rest of the Gulf, very favorable here. The rest of the Caribbean and Gulf, it is mid-August, so we're getting close. I believe the late, great Dr. Gray used to say August 20th is when that switch turns on, that conveyor belt, and the Atlantic comes to life. It was always August 20th. And when I was a kid, it was true, too, because I used to track hurricanes all summer when I was off school, and there'd be nothing to track. And then as soon as school started at the end of August, boom, there you go. They would all turn on. So things are going to get busy. You can see Grace down here, not too bad. It does have some shear, especially coming from this area of Puerto Rico. But again, if it continues, land's going to be the main feature that could weaken that. We're going to talk about Grace in a minute. The water temperatures in the Gulf, very, very favorable. I know this is kind of broad. You can't really tell. But I looked at some of the buoys out here. In Tampa Bay, near Tampa, St. Pete, almost 87 degrees Fahrenheit. So all of these waters are very, very warm for Fred or perhaps even Grace. We'll talk about that. Storm surge, water rises, Pensacola Bay, all the way over to St. Andrew Bay, 1 to 3 feet. Indian Pass to the Steinhatchee River in this little Big Bend area here, 2 to 4 feet of water rise is possible. This whole region, as the right side of that onshore flow of Fred pools onshore, you're going to have water rises. So again, this is 2 to 4 feet of water, and that's not a good thing. So you want to watch it there on the right side, even if Fred makes landfall near the border of Alabama and Florida, near Gulf Shores, Alabama, you'll still have that right side pushing water all the way up into the Big Bend. So it's going to be a dangerous time to be near the water this week. You can see the forecast for rain. That's a big deal. 6, 10, 12 inches at least. And as it interacts with what's left of that front, we could see even heavier rainfall all the way up into the Carolinas over the next few days, and that's why we have that slight risk of flash flooding, and that will continue all the way into the mid-Atlantic through Wednesday and midweek. The key messages as of 11 a.m. for Tropical Storm Fred number 1, today through Tuesday, heavy rainfall, urban small stream river flooding across South Florida, the Big Bend, the Panhandle, southern Alabama, Georgia, the western Carolinas. And then from Tuesday onward, that could continue into the southeast and southern central Appalachians and the Piedmont as Fred interacts with that front, as mentioned. Number 2, the dangerous storm surge is possible across the Panhandle. We have that storm surge warning. Interest in that area should follow advice given by local officials. Number 3, tropical storm conditions expected in the warning area of the Florida Panhandle beginning on Monday. So you still have a good 12 to 18 hours to get things tied down and get ready for the landfall of Fred. Now we're going to move from Fred over here to Grace down here south of Puerto Rico. This is the latest on Grace as of 11 a.m. Atlantic Standard Time, also Eastern. Grace was at 17.2 north, 66.0 west, winds of 40, so it's a minimal tropical storm like Fred, 1010 millibars, so it's a little weaker than Fred. It's moving west-northwest at 16, and we do have tropical storm warnings out. I'll go down the list here for the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, including Vieques and Culebra, and the Dominican Republic from the southern Haitian border all the way to Samana. And we also have a tropical storm watch for the north coast of the Dominican Republic and the entire coast of Haiti, as if they need it after that earthquake and all the bedlam they've been going through lately. You can see the forecast here has Grace making landfall tomorrow over the Dominican. Now, we saw what happened to Fred. Fred decapitated himself over those high mountains and never came back until the Gulf. That is a possibility. However, if Grace takes the northern edge or the southern edge and stays over water, Grace could be a much, much more powerful system. And a weak system over these areas does not preclude the possibility of a much stronger system in the Gulf. Remember Hurricane Laura last year, Category 4 in Louisiana, devastated the coast? That didn't even enter the Gulf as a hurricane. It was a tropical storm all the way across, remember? And then once it got to the Gulf, boom. Anyway, we don't know if that's going to happen, but right now the Hurricane Center has it strengthening by Friday here in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. Anybody in these areas of the Caribbean, the Florida Keys, southeast Florida, even the northeast coast of the Yucatan, anybody in this region needs to keep an eye on Grace. Here's the visible satellite imagery as it updates. You can see it looks rather ragged, but again, if Grace is down here, we could see center reformations. If it goes too far south, it might avoid Hispaniola, and that would keep it over water longer. That's why there's so many variables at play. Here's the San Juan radar, and again, it looks rather ill-defined, but what I see is spinning here is definitely headed towards the west, west-northwest at a pretty good clip. But look at all this heavy rain over these islands and headed for Puerto Rico. They're very susceptible to dangerous flooding. Here's the computer spaghetti model plots, and it's showing right over most of the islands in Cuba and right into the Gulf. But again, if you're in northern Mexico, South Texas, Louisiana, you guys could come into play with Grace in about 5-6 days, maybe earlier, depending on how fast she moves. The H-Wharf model as of 6Z, you could see it brings Grace over Puerto Rico and then strengthens it north of Hispaniola. It becomes a hurricane in the Bahamas, roars through the Bahamas, and then a powerful hurricane over South Florida by Thursday, and then into the Gulf of Mexico as a very dangerous hurricane south of the Florida Panhandle by Friday. Now that's just one computer model, but that shows you why we need to watch Grace so carefully. This is the GFS ensembles as of 6Z, the GFS, and you can see a lot of them make it a very dangerous hurricane in the western Gulf. You need to take that with a grain of salt, but notice they keep Grace weak, but then in the Gulf, it goes boom. So we're going to watch Grace very, very carefully. It is August, and we saw what happened last year with Laura. Heavy rainfall, flash urban flooding over the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the Dominican, and Haiti that could cause mudslides. Tropical storm conditions over the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico today and the Dominican Republic Monday, and then that's going to spread over Haiti Monday night. And number 3, there is a risk of rain and impacts in the Dominican, Haiti, Turks, Caicos, Bahamas, Cuba, and Florida by the time the midweek and late week comes, but the forecast uncertainty is higher than usual, as I mentioned. Interest in those areas should monitor the progress of Grace, and we will right here on these updates. As we look out in the rest of the Atlantic, you can see we have this invest area northeast of Bermuda. It is looking a little interesting. This could become a tropical storm, and you can see the forecast models generally have it looping around Bermuda, so it could be an impact on the island. If it does become a tropical storm, we went through Fred, we went through Grace, the next name is Henri, and so we'll see if this becomes Henri and spins around in the Atlantic. Finally, in the Pacific, that fat donut is Hurricane Linda. It was a Category 4 yesterday. It's been weakening to a 3, but it's taking on what we call annular characteristics. That means it shreds its outer bands, and it basically becomes a fat donut with a big hole in it, and that allows it to maintain its intensity longer as it moves west. Should remain out at sea, way in the middle of the Pacific between Hawaii and Mexico. Not going to have to deal with it. Just a cool-looking hurricane to watch. So that'll do it for the tropics right now. I know that was a long update, but a lot to talk about. Fred, headed for Florida. Grace, south of Puerto Rico. A possible system near Bermuda. More waves leaving Africa. We'll talk about everything over the next couple of days, and stay tuned for the latest.